Hello, welcome to This Side of the Ceiling. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Jill. And we're two good friends trying to live this life on this side of the ceiling as abundantly as Christ has called us to.
We are by no means experts, but we love to study His Word and share everything that He has revealed and taught us.
So come along with us as we open up the scriptures and dive into His wonderful Word.
Hello, welcome back to This Side of the Ceiling. And if you've been with us, we've been studying David and his life.
Yeah.
And we just, last time, we talked about 1 Samuel chapter 25 and his interaction with a woman named Abigail.
We loved Abigail.
Yeah.
Abigail's a strong, beautiful woman.
Exactly. And she ended up marrying David, or David ended up marrying her.
Yeah.
But yeah, we loved Abigail and the way that she was able to talk David down from a bad decision.
And also makes me love David that he listened.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
he recognized the truth that she was speaking to him and he was grateful for it.
Yes, exactly. And so we're going to move on to 1 Samuel chapter 26 today. And 1 Samuel 26, David is still on the run.
He has been a while now, hasn't he?
Trying to get away from Saul, the enemies that are wanting to kill him. And so, but the title of chapter 26 in 1 Samuel in my Bible says, David again spares Saul's life. And so, David is given another opportunity to take Saul's life. And he doesn't. And so, so the story is, I'll just kind of paraphrase it a little bit, but the story is David and his servant Abishai are near Saul and his army. And they see them. And so David and Abishai went to the army by night, it says in verse 7. And there was Saul, lying asleep inside the camp with his spear stuck in the ground near his head. Abner and the soldiers were lying around him. Abner was the head of Saul's army. It says, Abishai said to David, Today God has delivered your enemy into your hands. Now let me pin him to the ground with one thrust of my spear. I won't strike him twice. But David said to Abishai, Don't destroy him. Who can lay a hand on the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? As surely as the Lord lives, he said, the Lord himself will strike him. Either his time will come and he will die, or he will go into battle and perish. But the Lord forbid that I should lay a hand on the Lord's anointed. Now get the spear and water jug that are near his head, and let's go. So David took the spear and water jug near Saul's head, and they left. No one saw or knew about it, nor did anyone wake up. They were all sleeping, because the Lord had put them into a deep sleep. And then he reveals himself that he was there and that he had done that, and Saul wakes up and they talk back and forth. But, we see David once again, don't destroy him. Who can lay a hand on the Lord's anointed and be guiltless? So his conscience, his heart, that man after God's own heart.
Yeah, he has a fear of God that keeps him from doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, it convicts him right in the middle of that because Saul is asleep and it would be easy to let Abishai kill Saul.
Yeah, and these are his close people telling him to do it. First Chronicles tells us, if you look at that later, that Abishai's his nephew. It says that David's sister Zeruiah had some sons. Joab is one, and Abishai, and there's another one, Asahel, but he's not here now. But so he's got his nephew going, do it,
Yeah.
And David even says to him, no, we can't destroy him. How can we do this?
Yeah, and it made me start thinking about, how does that happen? Why does David keep making, he's in a stressful situation. He's in a situation where this man is trying to kill him. He could get rid of all that stress.
Right.
It seems like, in a worldly sense, I could get rid of all this stress if I just got rid of him.
Right.
And he has the opportunity, but then he says no.
Yeah.
And so it kind of made me think, why does he say no? Why does he not go with his will?
Right.
Why does he always step back and think, no, God's will, not my will? And then, then we get David's journal in the Psalms.
That's right.
And we don't really know exactly when they were written, but there are so many prayers that David prays in the Psalms. And in Psalm 141, I think this is one of the prayers that he prays. It says, "O Lord, I call to you. Come quickly to me. Hear my voice when I call to you. May my prayer be set before you like incense. May the lifting up of my hands be like the evening sacrifice. Set a guard over my mouth, O Lord. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Let not my heart be drawn to what is evil, to take part in wicked deeds with men who are evildoers. Let me not eat of their delicacies. Let a righteous man strike me, it is kindness. Let him rebuke me, it is oil on my head. My head will not refuse it, yet my prayer is ever against the deeds of evildoers." And so I think God's answering his prayers.
Yeah.
I think he is praying for God to guard his mouth, keep watch over his lips. Let not my heart be drawn to what is evil, to take part in evil deeds. And I think that's what's happening. He has opportunity, but God's guarding him because he's prayed for that. He's prayed that God guards him in those situations.
Yeah.
And what a good example for me, especially that line in Psalm 141 that says, "Set a guard over my mouth, keep watch over the door of my lips." I think for me, that's what gets me in trouble,
Oh, me too.
lot.
For sure. Definitely.
is the words that I say, especially in a stressful situation or a situation where I've been hurt and I feel like I've got enemies around me. I want to just cut with my words and with my lips. And what a good prayer
Yes.
to pray, to set a guard over my mouth, keep watch over the door of my lips.
And this is the king, the future king. We don't know when he writes that, but he already knows I need to be careful what I say because he has been following him.
Yeah.
They're going to do whatever he says. And he's praying that God keep watch over what he says.
Right. Yeah. I think that is such wisdom from David. I mean, he says the prayer, but then later is when that prayer is answered.
Right.
I think these are answered prayers where he's not doing something he'll regret.
I think that's a beautiful thing about prayer is I like to say there's not a shelf life on it. Our prayers, Revelation says God holds them like incense in a bowl, and so we can pray for our children or something, and it's out there. It's just out there. There's not a shelf life to it.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's good. But I also want to move to chapter 27 a little bit because David's tired.
Yeah.
David is so tired of running. I mean, we are now talking years that he has been running away from Saul. And even when he gets close, he says, but I'm not the one to do this. God's going to do it. And he even says in what you just said, okay, Saul's going to die, but it's not going to be by my hand. But yet, in this next verse that I want to read, I think we see that David's just tired. And so David becomes to, I want to say, despair a little bit. We've seen David at times when he has despaired run to Jonathan, but Jonathan's not around to encourage him, his best friend. We've seen him run to Samuel, but Samuel has died. Samuel's not here either. And so in the first verse of 27, this is what David says, and it says he said it in his heart. So we're studying this heart
Right.
after God. And so here's what David says in his heart. Now I will perish one day by the hand of Saul. There's nothing better for me than that I should escape to the land of the Philistines. Then Saul will despair of seeking me any longer within the borders of Israel, and I will escape out of his hand. Now, that's one verse. Let's remind ourselves, had David been promised the kingdom?
Yes.
Yes! Would David perish by Saul's hand?
No.
No, he's not going to. So why does David say this? Oh, Saul's going to kill me, I better go. Because he's in despair and he's tired. And so where does he go? He goes to the Philistines. So we see what despair can do to us. It causes us to leave, depart. And so David goes, and where he goes is to the Philistines, and he goes.
The enemies.
The
where
enemy.
Goliath
Exactly. He
from.
goes to the king of Gath. Who is from Gath? Goliath. So he goes to King Achash, who's the king of Gath, and David lives in Gath. Now, so he has despair, then he puts distance between him and the people of God. And then while he is at this distance, all of a sudden he's around all these Philistines, and it's not who David is.
Right.
His heart is in conflict. And so David can't stand living among the unrighteous Philistines. So he's got to put some distance between them. So he goes to the king and he says, hey, I'm reading in verse 5, if I've found favor in your eyes, let a place be given to me in one of the country towns so that I can dwell there. Why should your servant dwell in the royal city with you? So that day Achish gave him Ziklag. Therefore Ziklag has belonged to the kings of Judah to this day. So David creates some distance. And so we have David out here in Ziklag, and the king doesn't really know what David's doing. And so if you read longer in that, you see that what David starts to do is David goes out and he's raiding these towns. And then he'll go back to the king, and the king will say, well, where were you raiding today? And David will tell him that, when the king asks him that, David would say, oh, against the Negeb of Judah, or against the Negeb of the Jerahmeelites, or against the Negeb of the Kenites. I don't even know how you pronounce that. But we know that David is lying, and he's pretending, because he's really going, and his spoils are really against the enemies of Israel. And so he's really going and claiming some of that promised land that the Israelites were supposed to claim. They haven't. But so we see David spinning two plates. He is on one hand becoming very trusted by this king of Gath, the Philistines, because he is telling, he's being nice to him, and he is, remember, this was the chief warrior of the Philistines that was fighting against them. And so now he's on their side, they think. And
Right.
and so he's telling him, oh, I've been out here. And but really, on the other hand, he is fighting God's enemy. He's still fighting God's enemies. So what happens? Well, David's divided. He's been in despair. He's departed from God's people. He's created distance from him. And now he's divided because he's trying to keep the Philistines happy, but he can't. He can't kill the Israelites. That's his people. He's still being true to God, but he's divided.
Yeah.
Now, anytime that happens, our despair leads us to depart from some of the people of God, and we create distance and we become divided. The next thing that's happening is disaster.
Yeah.
And here it's all going to come to head. And in chapter 28, it says, in those days, the Philistines gathered their forces for war to fight against Israel. And Achish said to David, understand, you and your men are going out with me in the army. And David said to Achish, very well, you shall know what your servant can do. And Achish said to David, very well, I will make you my bodyguard for life. David is now in trouble. It's going to come to a head because the Philistines have decided to go attack the Israelites. Why not? I mean, you've got the best warrior on your side now. Mm-hmm. And Achish says, now make sure you know you're with me. You're on my side. And David is kind of scripted. I don't know what that means. My Bible reads, very well, you shall see what your servant will do.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. And Achish falsely believes that he's on his side.
Right.
So we're not going to tie this up right now. We want to leave you hopefully a little bit conflicted because we see that David, if he goes with Achish, he's going to have to fight against his own people. Mm-hmm. And he's never done that. And he can't do that. He can't do that. But if he says, Achish, I can't go fight against my people, then Achish is going to go, what do you mean? You've been with You've been doing that, haven't you? That's what you've told me, and the gig is up.
Right.
Now, this is what happens. This is what happens. David is in a no-win situation unless God comes in and rescues him. Mm-hmm. So that's where we're going to leave him. We're going to leave him in that situation. And, what is our man of God doing? He has not... He is tried to take this a little bit in his hand again. Despair causes us to doubt God's promises. Mm-hmm. There were other people in the Bible that did that too. I mean, can you think of other people?
I mean, Abraham, when he took Hagar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Waiting on God for the promised son.
He doesn't wait long enough, and he thinks, "Oh, I'm supposed to have a son. I guess it must be through this concubine." Mm-hmm. And then all kinds of problems happen. So David, again, thinks, well, Saul's going to kill me. I better go run to the enemy. And we're going to see it has landed him in this no-win situation.
Because he's trying to survive in the enemy's territory.
Right.
And when you're trying to survive in the enemy's territory, it's not good.
It's not going to go well. But hopefully, God is going to come rescue him. So that's where we leave you. On this side of the ceiling for today.
Thanks for listening and journeying with us on this side of the ceiling. See you next time.